Welcome, everyone, to tonight's debate between the two candidates for state representative, representing, of course, the city of Attleboro. Tonight's debate is sponsored by the Sun Chronicle and the United Regional Chamber of Commerce. I want to welcome not only the people who are watching on television, but the people who have assembled here at Attleboro City Hall. One thing I have learned about past debates about this building and this room specifically, it's kind of like a fireplace. The heat is here, and instead of the air all rushing this way, the sound comes rushing this way. So especially for those of you standing in the back, if you want to carry on a conversation, I would just ask you to go out either into the hallway or outside, because believe it or not, we can hear every word that's being said. I did get a chance to see last year's debates at Attleboro High School on television, and I wasn't very happy with the interaction between the candidates on stage and those of you who might have been assembled last year, but I'm going to say that you all look very nice, and you weren't the ones last year at Attleboro High School, but we appreciate you being here, but really it's between the candidates, the panelists, and the television audience. So if you would please hold your applause till the end of the evening, I would certainly appreciate it. And if you want to give them a standing ovation at the end of the evening, that is fine as well. The way tonight's debate will work, our three panelists, Bill Gouveia, who is a Sun Chronicle columnist, Jack Lank, the president of the United Regional Chamber of Commerce, and Jim Hand, longtime Sun Chronicle reporter, will each ask a question of the two candidates. They'll take turns asking questions. They'll rotate back and forth. And once that is done, the candidates will get a chance to ask questions of each other, time for rebuttal, etc. We will begin by, first of all, introducing our candidates. And once again, please hold your applause till the end of the evening. The incumbent, the Democrat running in this race, Paul Heroux, or Heroux. He doesn't care, I'm sure, how you pronounce it as long as you vote for him, Paul Heroux. And the challenger, the Republican, Burt Buckley, which there's no question on how to pronounce Burt Buckley. So
easy, Peter.
Best of luck, gentlemen. We will begin with the opening statements. I flipped a coin earlier, and candidate A will be Mr. Heroux. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, very good. Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. I am running for... do I have the mics? Are the mics on?
Do you know if the microphones are turned up? Now, I would assume you can hear me fine. Yes. I know when I lecture at church, they say the older people say they love it because I talk loud. It sounds like it's working.
Okay, how's this? Is this a little bit better? Can I? Okay, yeah. What a lot of folks might not know about me is I'm actually a little bit of an introvert, a little on the shy side, so I tend to speak very softly, but hopefully that won't deter you from voting for me. Basically, it's a real pleasure to be here this evening, and the past 2 years have been an honor and an opportunity to serve my hometown of Attleboro. I grew up here, graduated high school here. I worked at my father's drugstore for a number of years. I worked as a youth. I worked there as after I graduated from high school here in class of '95. I worked for 7 years with 5 to 12-year-old children at the Attleboro YMCA. The past 2 years have been a very busy time for me. I've really enjoyed the last 2 years. And the work that I do, most of the work that I do, I would say 80% of what I do is constituent service work. And about 18% of the work that I do involves legislation, either advancing my own legislation or trying to alter legislation that's before us in the House. The last 2% is probably voting on legislation itself. Now, the work that we do up in the House, we do as a team. Nothing is accomplished alone. Nothing is done alone. There's no one person who has absolute power, not even the Speaker, because the Speaker has a check with the Senate. So the work that I've focused on over the last 2 years is mainly work that, concerns Attleboro citizens, Attleboro residents. One of the things that I've, spent a lot of the time on, as I said earlier, was constituent service work. And I actually want to give you guys a sense of how much constituent service work I have been involved with. These are all the notes. This is Attleboro right here. These are the problems that people in Attleboro have that they've called me about. People have called me about cases where they're unemployed. People are homeless. People have called me about their family members who might be suicidal or in need of mental health assistance. People have called me about problems to help them with, firearms ID. You name it. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat doing the constituent service work, which is 80% of what I do. It is, how you respond to the problems that are before you. It's whether or not you handle these problems in a nice, fair, and compassionate manner without judging folks. So that is what I pride myself on. I've had a number of legislative achievements as well, and there's one part of what I do which is basically transparency, and I will categorically say there is no legislator in the state more transparent than me. There is no legislator. I put everything out there on my Facebook page, the homepage of my website, and I challenge anybody to show me another legislator who has more on their website. So thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to this fun debate.
I forgot to mention our timekeeper is Ann Friedman, and fortunately, Mr. Haro saw her cues, but she will hold up cues. I believe they are 1 minute, 30 seconds, 15 minutes, and stop. And so if you could keep an eye on her just out of the corner of your eye. The second opening statement will be delivered by Mr. Buckley.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you to the Sun Chronicle. Thank you, the United Regional Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, AACS. And thank you to the community for this opportunity to talk to you about the future of Attleboro. My name is Bert Buckley, and I ask for your vote for state representative on Tuesday, November 4th. I'm running for state representative because Attleboro need to be put first. Our local officials have worked very hard to improve our roads, our bridges, our downtown, our athletic fields, and our financial strength. Now we need a state representative who will build on this success and effectively represent our community on Beacon Hill. I will represent Attleboro with passion, pride, a sense of community for all 43,000 plus that call Attleboro home. I will tackle issues that face our city head-on with a business-friendly and fiscally responsible mindset. I'm proud to serve as a member of the Attleboro Planning Board, a member of the Sturdy Memorial Foundation, and a member of the United Regional Chamber of Commerce. We need a representative that will work across party lines, build relationships, advance our community in all aspects of government. My opponent will tell you tonight that he carefully votes on all aspects of legislation. He'll tell you that he vets all his materials, yet he's voted 91% of the time with leadership and the Patrick administration. He'll tell you that he is the most transparent in Massachusetts, but he did not allow, or he did not vote on committee votes to be posted online. He'll make an argument for his involvement in community, yet he is void of all any endorsements from community leaders. Cooperation with city leaders is key to the success of Attleboro. I am proud of my endorsement from Mayor Dumas, many of the city councilors who are here tonight, many of the school committee members that are here tonight, and a lot of the department heads throughout the city of Attleboro. Many of them believe in me so much that they've worked on my campaign. As your next state representative, I will continue to champion my local involvement and be the strongest advocate for Beacon Hill, for our community, putting Attleboro first. I ask for your vote on November 4th in the general election. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. The first question of the evening will be asked by Sun Chronicle columnist Bill Gouveia. The question will be asked of Mr. Haro. Bill?
Thank you, Peter. Representative Haro, Some of your critics suggest that you are lacking in passion for the district and the city, and are more of a bureaucrat than a passionate advocate. What is your response to those who would advance such a view?
And Mr. Rowe, you have 3 minutes.
Right, this right here. I mean, this is Attleboro in me, our relationship together. I've got names, I've got problems in here. I've personally driven Attleboro residents to homeless shelters. I've met with anybody anytime they want to meet. I don't hold office hours, I do home visits. You know, whether it's they come over my home, I go to their home. You know, the idea that, you know, I might lose election because I didn't go to enough football games. Quite often Friday nights I'm driving people to a homeless shelter. In fact, one person that I've worked with previously, he contacted me because he's in need of assistance again. Now, this idea that I lack the passion, I think there is a difference between being, you know, someone who's an extrovert and someone who's sort of an introvert. You know, my passion is not something I like to wear on my sleeve, but I post everything I do on my my Facebook page that anybody can look at anytime. So if I lacked passion for this job, I think I wouldn't be so active in the job. I mean, this is an 18-hour-a-day job. This is more than a job. It's a way of life. It's not even just a career. You know, taking on the, you know, problems that people can bring forth to me, you know, the legislation that people have asked me to file. You know, I filed 29 bills as a freshman. My predecessor filed 6. You know, no freshman rep filed more bills than me. About half the bills I filed were on behalf of the constituents. So I think there's a real difference between, you know, having a passion doing a job and wearing it on your sleeve, and having a passion and just, you know, quietly going about your business.
Mr. Buckley, you have 2 minutes to respond to his answer.
Bill, passion for the city of Attleboro, I think I have plenty. Yes, I'm on the football field on Friday night, absolutely, because of 5 children, a wife, and a community. I am passionate about the city, whether it's volunteering, going to those football games, going to the Pop Warner games or the baseball games. I am passionate about the city every day of the week. My constituent services have to do with my children, my family, and their business, and the opportunities that I try to build for my family. I mean, that's it. This community is part of me. It's part of my 5 children. It's part of my wife. It's my business. It's you know, the 18-hour-a-day job is 24 hours a day for someone, you know, that has 5 children, a wife, you know, family business, local business, you know, volunteer aspects, Sturdy Memorial Foundation, you know, doing, you know, those types of things. I do that every day of the week because I'm passionate about the city. I'm a member of the planning board because I'm passionate about the growth and how, you know, the city is, you know, the future is shaped here. I do these things, you know, I do these things of my own volition. Nobody asks me, you know, I mean, I was asked to be part of, you know, the planning board, but, you know, I'm asked to donate my time. That's what I do. It's about the community, it's about the city, and it's about the future of my children. That's what I'm passionate about.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next question will be asked by Jack Lank, the President, CEO of the United Regional Chamber of Commerce. Jack, your question will be to Mr. Buckley.
Okay. Thank you. Attleboro residents still need good jobs and a fair tax rate, so this might be a 2-part question. If elected, how would you use the position of state rep to bring more qualified, good-paying jobs to Attleboro? And would you fight for the state income tax to be reduced from 6.25 to 5%?
And you have 3 minutes.
Okay. Jack, absolutely, and on my website it says that. I absolutely agree. I think that's one of the things that differs, you know, Paul and I differ on. Yes. Secondly, you know, my family and I were small business owners. We constantly deal with the small business aspect of things every day of the week. For me to champion things, my first order of business in January would be to be a champion for gateway cities. There is a lot of untapped resources that come along with that program, and we're running out of time, quite frankly. We haven't done anything with it in the last 2 years, and I think there's a mindset in Attleboro that if we can tap into gateway cities, brownfields cleanup, job creation, the tax credits that come along with that, I think, the city of Attleboro would benefit greatly from. Being a part of the Sturdy Foundation, Sturdy Memorial Hospital is the largest provider of jobs in the city of Attleboro, and we need to capitalize on the fact that there's a lot of medical professions and medical opportunities for the city, whether it's, more doctors and more professions and more specialties, or, more outreach programs. There's plenty that we can do. I would be a champion on Beacon Hill to bring those jobs to the city of Attleboro.
Mr. Hero, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Very good. Jack, I think you said that, we want to bring the income tax down from 6.25 to 5.
Yes.
We're not talking about the sales tax, you're talking about the income tax?
I have the income tax, excuse me, it is the sales tax, I apologize.
I, too, support reducing the sales tax back to 5% when it's fiscally responsible. My opponent has gone on the record, as have I, about our positions about the income tax, but his position would reduce state revenues by $1.1 billion. Not only did he want to reduce revenues by $1.1 billion, but he also wanted to increase spending on different programs. When you decrease revenues, increase spending, you create a deficit. I filed several bills that would support small businesses and manufacturing businesses right here in Attleboro. When I saw on the back of the pin that was issued to me by the State House that said "Made in China," I couldn't believe it. And I filed a bill that would require all purchases that the state government makes be manufactured first from Massachusetts, when not available from the United States, when not available then from overseas. This bill came roaring out of committee. Unfortunately, it didn't have much support with House leadership, and it just wasn't the right time for it. A lot of times it takes, on average, about 6 years for a bill to pass, but this is something I'll take up again upon re-election. You and I have worked well together, and, with the work we've done, for the fats, oils, and grease program. It was some of the research I did at your request to look at the, who's behind the charging of fees for the fats, oils, and grease program, and I found some pretty interesting information that was useful to you and some other small businesses. There have been a number of other things I've done to promote job growth in Attleboro, but my opponent and I, we have something in common. We both come from small business families. My father owns County Square Pharmacy. It's been in operation for 40 years. I grew up working in that drugstore. My mother owns Plainville Prescription Center. I also grew up working in that drugstore. I worked first with my dad for a number of years, and then I moved over with my mom. But the essentials of small business ownership are not foreign to me. I mean, it's part of my family. I mean, my sister, who's in the room right now, she's likely to take over that business. But it's near and dear to me, and I've enjoyed working with you, filing legislation on behalf of businesses right here in Attleboro. For example, I forgot to go into more detail, but the pin, that was says "Made in China" on the back of it. We produce those right here with Nobby Crafters, in Attleboro. I don't know why we couldn't do that here. So, yeah, there's been a number of things that I've done, a number of things that I'll continue to do.
Thank you. Last but certainly not least among our panelists and asking a question of Mr. Hero is Sun Chronicle reporter Jim Hand.
Representative Hero, since the subject right now seems to be business and small business, you voted for an increase in the minimum wage. It will go up gradually over 3 years to $10 an hour. And your opponent has said that would hurt small business. Why'd you vote that way if it would hurt small business?
3 minutes to answer.
Because it does not hurt small business. There's only half of the equation being presented, and that's the cost to business that the increase in the minimum wage will incur. But the other half of the equation is that more money is being circulated through the economy, which goes back to small businesses. Both of my parents own small businesses. They, with the increase in minimum wage, they haven't seen their businesses struggle. With the increase in minimum wage, there's been virtually no effect. There's January 1st this year, I believe the number is 15 states, and Representative from North Attleboro and I discussed this on local cable TV. 15 states raised the minimum wage all at the same time. All 15 states saw a decrease in unemployment. Employment went up after the minimum wage. So when we were looking at this at the State House, the Committee on Labor and Workforce Development, who I talked to beforehand about, like where are they getting their research? Are they actually researching this, or is it just being pushed for ideological purposes? 600 studies all confirmed that increasing the minimum wage is not going to have a negative effect on small businesses and the economy. It's, again, only half of the equation is being presented. Yes, it does result in small businesses in any business producing more, spending more, but then more money is also coming to them. In fact, Mr. Handy, you wrote an article in the Sun Chronicle a number of months ago talking about the relationship between the minimum wage and small business and big business, and it's largely the larger businesses, McDonald's and Walmart, and the huge corporations with billion-dollar owners like the Walton family. Those are the businesses that largely pay the minimum wage. The smaller businesses often don't. I mean, my family, you're going to get what you pay for too. When you have a better paid employee, you're going to get a better serving employee, and know that firsthand. So, thank you.
Mr. Buckley, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Paul, my family owns a small business. We live it every day. The fact of the matter is the difference between a 5th employee or a 6th employee or a 7th employee is tied to how much we have to pay, period. The fact of the matter is we need to realize that exactly what you just said, you pay for what you get. So how about if I have that choice? How about if you leave that choice to me? We pay well, but if I am hampered with $10, $11, $12, $13, $15 an hour, the problem is instead of having that 6th, 7th, 8th, 10th employee, I have to have 5 employees because I cannot afford to have the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, or the 10th employee.
Thank you. The next question will be asked by Mr. Gouveia, and the question will be addressed to Mr. Buckley. And you will have 3 minutes to respond.
Thank you, Peter.
Mr. Buckley, your campaign has been fairly short on specifics. You've said you want to cut taxes, but you've not said specifically how you would make up for the loss in revenue. You said you would favor building a new high school in Attleboro, but not a property tax override to fund it. You've offered no real specifics as to exactly how you would tighten our belts and cut state spending, but you've come out in favor of increasing state aid and spending on education. You must have some kind of plan on how to achieve all this. Could you please share the specifics of that with the voters here tonight?
Okay, the 2.5 override is a local issue. It's not a it's not a state issue. So that's first and foremost. 3 simple things. I would vote to restore local aid to its pre-cut levels. I would roll back the income tax to 5%, and I would also ask for an exemption from the municipalities, a municipality exemption on the excise tax for fuel. That saves approximately 26 cents on the gallon. All of those cuts right there mean more dollars for the city of Attleboro. The 26.5 cents that we would save on a gallon of gas with that exemption would give us approximately $40,000 more a year. I mean, in simple terms, that's a police cruiser. When we talk about the income tax rolling back to 5%, and Paul saying that if there's more money, in people's pockets, they'll go out and spend more. Well, that's exactly what I'm talking about. If you roll it back to 5%, maybe the people of the city of Attleboro will go out and spend more money. When we talk about restoring local aid to pre-cut levels, that to me, it gives the city of Attleboro more money for schools, bridges, roads, everything that is tied there. To be a champion for the whole high school aspect of things, I think working with the SBA to get a new high school would be a top priority to me. Again, the 5 children that sit here, 3 out of the 5 anyways tonight, that sit here, I would be a champion on Beacon Hill for us to get a new high school. I think it's needed. Do I think that we should have a 2.5 override? As a resident of the city of Attleboro, no. But again, it's from a state representative perspective, it's a local issue.
Mr. Hero, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Thank you. Several of the ideas that Mr. Buckley has offered have been proposed before, by other members of the House. None of them have gained much traction. I can't say I disagree, with everything he's saying about, like giving an exemption to municipalities, but, it's been tried before and it hasn't gained much traction. One of the ways that I've actually tried to bring money back to Attleboro is by doing so without raising taxes and using existing tax revenues. I was successful in getting $38 million authorized out of the House and out of the Senate. That involved me getting, working with, Democrats, Republicans. It involved working with, the people in the Senate, the Mass School Committee Association, Mass Association of School Committees, Mass Teacher Association, American Federation of Teachers. These are all organizations that I worked with to try and get this. And what happened was, we got the money authorized. The governor has decided to spend that money and start with a pilot program of $5 million. All Attleboro has to do is apply for the grant from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and we're looking at $700,000 coming back to Attleboro using existing tax revenues without raising taxes. Additionally, I did that a very similar thing with the Attleboro wastewater treatment plant. I was able to get an authorization of $5.1 million for the Attleboro wastewater treatment plant. And that's something that came out of the House, came out of the Senate, and that's something that I've encouraged the mayor on multiple occasions to take up with the executive branch to make sure that we go ahead and take advantage of that. So in terms of getting school aid and local aid, I've done my job as a legislator trying to get the money authorized, and now it's within the executive branches, to make sure that they take advantage of the work that I've done. Like I said earlier, nothing is done alone. This isn't a, capture the flag type situation where I can run over and grab one, victory for myself. Everything has to be done in at multiple levels with different types of input from different folks. So, but like I said, there's tangible successes that we're looking at.
Thank you. The next question will be asked by Mr. Lank, and it will be addressed to Mr. Hero.
Paul, you mentioned earlier that you've filed 29 bills up the State House. I don't know how many of them have passed, but a very low number from what I understand. What do you think is the problem, and what can you do in the future to fix that?
Well, you're right. A very low number did pass, and that's normal. In fact, one representative...
How many?
How many? Oh gosh, I want to say about maybe 2 or 3. One of them got merged into the gun bill, slightly different form. It is a fairly low number. But, if you look at the practice of what goes on in the State House, oftentimes you're going to see committee chairs have their bills come out and go forward, and freshman reps don't really get too much, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. Like I was saying a moment ago, 2 of my biggest successes were amendments to bills. $38 million for schools, $5.1 million for Attleboro's wastewater plant. Those were amendments to bills, and those successfully came forward. What's the problem with that? it's just, a very interesting culture up there. The average time it takes for a bill to pass is about 6 years. And it's not so much the strength of an idea, it's not so much the rightness of an idea that makes a bill pass or not. You could have the best idea in the world, the most cost-saving bill idea in the world, but what happens is it's oftentimes the amount of support something has. That's where, we have 160 House seats, and then you have 40 Senate seats, and you need basically 81 reps, including leadership, to sign off on something. That's tough. It's less than 10% of bills filed ever become law. Most of the bills, get refiled and filed and refiled, but it is normal. Most of the bills that I filed were, not most, around half, half the bills I filed were for constituents right here in Attleboro. They had real concerns about something. They had good ideas about stuff. Some ideas were, probably better than others. But that's part of my job, is to represent folks. And I remember this, the senator from Rentham, he filed a bill, and he took a lot of flack for it, but he filed it by request. He did nothing wrong. There was nothing wrong with that. But, it was, but that's something that we do as state reps and state senators, is file bills that, a lot of people ask of us. So my number was great because a lot of people came to me because I was quite responsive, and I return phone calls and I answer emails. So, yeah, that's all I got to say about that.
Mr. Buckley, you have 2 minutes.
Out of the 29, 2 were bond bills. One was for $5.1 million for the wastewater treatment plant, which has not been allocated. The other one was the $38 million for technology, of which $5 million has been allocated just last week. Out of that $5 million, $2 million is to be shared between 43 cities and towns in Massachusetts that are classified as urban, and we are classified as urban. So out of that $2 million, we have to share $2 million with 43 cities and towns, and I'll give you a list. Brockton, New Bedford, Worcester, Taunton, Revere, Everett, Malden, Lynn, Chelsea, Lawrence. Now, if you take the 43 cities and you divide the $2 million, that's $46,000 a community. Out of that, but it's not equally shared, so you have to apply for it. And then it's based on need. And on that need, and again, I'll take it for what it's worth. Chelsea, Lawrence, New Bedford, Brockton, Worcester, Taunton, Revere, Everett, Malden. I'm thinking the need is greater in those cities and towns than Attleboro. So where we're going to sit on that $2 million and how much of an allocation we actually get is not decided. So the $38 million that he talks about is a bond bill. It's a Christmas tree. It's window painting. There's $13.5 billion that are allocated for bond bills. $13.5 billion. Most of them never come to fruition. This education or this technology that has come through, 5 out of that 38 million is the $5 million has come through. And out of that, we will be able to benefit $2 million. Now, again, $2 million is a lot of money, but when you're sharing it with 43 cities and towns, with the needs of Taunton, Revere, Everett, Malden, Lynn, Brockton, New Bedford, I find it difficult to think that we're going to get an awful lot for internet for a building that's 50 years old.
The final question this evening from the panelists will come from Mr. Hand, and it will be addressed to Mr. Buckley, who will have 3 minutes to answer.
When Mr. Gavea asked this question, he asked for specifics on, you said we could cut the sales tax by $1 billion.
No,
Well, by 25%. that equals $1 billion. And he asked for specifics of how you'd make up, what you would cut in spending to make up for that lost revenue. And you said, your answer was you would increase local aid, which would increase the deficit, and you'd cut the sales tax. So I'm going to ask the same question specifically. What would you cut to offset $1 billion loss in revenue?
$1 billion loss in revenue, I think, is, I mean, it'd have to be studied. That's first and foremost. I think if we spend $500 million on a failed website and a failed health connector, I'm thinking that's where I would start. We're going to spend upwards of $1 billion on healthcare, and it's a failed healthcare program. So that's the one thing that I could start with. I'm sure there's a whole host of things, Jim, up on Beacon Hill that can be cut, that can be trimmed, and that can be better managed.
Tell us.
I'm not there yet, but when I do get there, I got to figure that there are several departments and several several things that are done up on Beacon Hill that could be cut. My personal belief is if we're spending $1 billion on the healthcare system that has failed, I think I would start there.
Mr. Hero, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Thank you. I think Mr. Buckley is confusing the federal budget and the state budget, because most of the money that we're talking about losing, all the money we're talking about losing, the $1 billion, $1.1 billion, has come from the state budget. It's been federal dollars that have been making up the the cost for the the healthcare problems we're having, the new health connector. I think the number is only about $26 million of state money, and I don't mean to say only $26 million, but relative to the $500 million, $1 billion figures that you were just citing, Mr. Buckley, it is only in relative comparison. Now, the reason I got into being state rep in the first place was to make government operate more efficiently. I've got a real reputation of being a big pain in the butt when it comes to measuring government programs and holding government agencies accountable up in Boston. I'm working with 3 state agencies right now. I'm personally measuring programs at 3 state agencies. I'm going in, sitting down in front of a computer with the staff at 3 different state agencies, rolling up my sleeves, spending hours there. I'm acting more like a consultant than a state rep, and actually that's what I tell those agencies, this is where we can find some savings, is what programs work, which ones don't, and then try and reform the ones that do and don't, the ones that don't work. Now there's, my opponent had just pointed out was that he really, hasn't, a lot of the stuff that he's talking about is just the same old Republican talking points. And I hate to sound Republican Democrat, but, they're not very, deep. They're very superficial. Every state agency is operating with a deficit. They defer maintenance as a way to balance the budgets. I mean, every single year, Massachusetts has to forego different types of, payments on stuff so that way we can have a balanced budget. But the idea that we're just gonna, send somebody new up there with the same old ideas that haven't, panned out in the past. I mean, I have a unique skill set, and that's measuring government programs to see if they work or not. And I'm doing that with several agencies right now. And I'm gonna be able to produce tangible results with that. That's a unique skill set. The same old ideas are not a unique skill set. That's my response to that. That's where I've been going with trying to make sure we save money at the state level.
That closes out the panelist portion of this debate. Next round is always my favorite. It's when the candidates get to ask each other questions and then get a chance to respond. The way this will work is the candidate will ask a question. The candidate answering the question will have 3 minutes, and then the candidate that originally asked the question will get 2 minutes to response. The first question will be asked by Mr. Hero, and of course it will be asked to Mr. Buckley.
Very good. Mr. Buckley, the main policy goal of mine is to make sure we measure government programs. I want to make sure that the programs we're offering actually work. I want to make sure that the drug treatment program really reduces drug offending, that the job placement program actually places people in jobs at a greater rate than people who didn't participate in that program. In order to do that, in order to look at what state agencies are doing to determine whether or not cuts can and should be made, we have to find out what works first and what doesn't work. Because you don't want to cut something that works, and that's, what are the metrics you would use to determining whether or not a government program is actually working? And for the record, I did ask this of my predecessor.
Mr. Buckley?
I think, Paul, I think when you start talking about matrices and measures and sitting on panels and going through and trying to measure whether state government is working or not. The Patrick, you voted with the Patrick administration 92% of the time, and things are broken, Paul. Things are broken, and there's people out in the audience that know that. I mean, if I commend you for, showing me metrics. I appreciate that. I'm a small business owner that struggles every day of the week to put food on the table and to provide for my children. The state of Massachusetts is broken, and we need to fix a lot of the programs, not just one or two of the programs.
You have 2 minutes to respond.
It's like deja vu. Thank you for explaining to the audience you have absolutely no idea how to determine whether or not we're wasting taxpayer dollars. I mean,
We do every day, Paul.
it's my turn. It's my turn.
Buckley, you had your chance.
The manner in which we go about measuring government programs isn't something that can be done, just by putting numbers on a page. You have to make sure you have a treatment group and a control group, people who are participating in a program and who are not participating in a program. It's a science. It's something that is a very important and needed skill set up there, something that I've brought to the State House that, I've made, a lot of waves with up, in Boston. There's so much that can be done just by planting a seed. This wasn't even really being talked about before I got up there, how to measure government programs. My predecessor, he had mentioned, there's agencies that do that. I've seen those agency reports. They're numbers on a page. After I see these agency reports, I go and I work with the agencies. I explain to them. I worked with the Treasurer's Office explaining, how to better do a cost-benefit analysis on some of the programs they're offering. I've worked with public safety agencies. The Department of Transitional Assistance, I've worked with that agency. With the, Department of Children and Families, a broken agency, they have one research person. This is something that is, if we were talking about whether or not I'm passionate about something earlier. I mean, I'm extremely, as nerdy as it might sound, I'm extremely passionate about making sure we're not wasting taxpayer dollars by using statistics and research. It's a unique skill set. It's something different. It's something needed, and it's not something that I think we should dismiss, for the next representative who wouldn't have that skill set.
The next question will be asked by Mr. Buckley.
Paul, question 4 would require all businesses with more than 11 employees to provide up to 40 hours of paid sick leave to workers, including the part-time 30 hours a week. Seeing Section 5 of this question requires the state to be the employer for child care providers and personal care attendants. Do you favor another department and bigger government to regulate small business?
It's not so much whether or not we want to get a bigger government, it's the right size of government. And I do support the earned sick time. And as we were talking about earlier, your family and my family are both small business owners. Neither one of us are small business owners, but both of our families have small businesses. The research on this issue is pretty clear that when you increase the benefits for small businesses, you're going to end up having better workforce. Now, having another state agency, I'm not crazy about the idea of that, but there's very few questions which, you can say I'm 100% in favor of this or I'm 100% opposed to that. I'm also a little bit intrigued as to why we're talking about the ballot questions. That's not something the legislature is taking up. That's something that the citizens are taking up. We've heard a lot from your campaign about the ballot questions, but that's not stuff the legislature is taking up. That's stuff that citizens are taking up. So I'd personally like to hear more about the issues that the legislature is taking up. I think a lot of residents and citizens would as well.
Mr. Buckley, you have 2 minutes.
Well, you're a citizen. That's first and foremost. The burden relies on small business. Most unions and whatnot, they have a small business or a benefits package. The Section 5 specifically provides for daycare workers and personal care attendants for the state government to essentially be their employer. That's another bureaucracy and another department that has to overlook, basically if personal care attendants and daycare workers are going to work and, if they get their 8 hours this week, it's bigger government, it's more government, plain and simple. I'm not in favor of that, and I'm especially not in favor of Section 5.
Once again, Mr. Buckley will ask the question of Mr. Hero.
Oh, I got another one?
Yes. What it says on the paper that I follow.
You voted to implement Obamacare, H. 3452, an amendment that was offered to estimate the cost of doing so, which you voted against, roll call 13146. Given that implementation is not yet complete and has already cost the taxpayers an estimated $500 million, do you regret voting against getting a cost estimate before implementation?
No, because there were already cost estimates available, and the unfolding of the Affordable Care Act, which a lot of people refer to as Obamacare, has had a lot of bumps. That goes with any program. When George Bush rolled out Medicaid Part D, that had its bumps as well. So yeah, it's been quite a difficult, bumpy process moving from Romney Care to the additional provisions of Obamacare. One of the things about this, what we've taken on in Massachusetts is the Affordable Care Act is essentially just a bunch of guidelines. It's 2,000 pages of guidelines, which is just a monster of a beast, but it's not an actual program in and of itself. I did vote to implement that because of two glaring important facts. Number one, there are more people covered now than there were before. That's just a fact. More people have health care than they did before. Number two, voting against and not adopting the Affordable Care Act in Massachusetts would have resulted in about 90 cents on the dollar of our federal tax dollars getting redistributed to other states. Why would I ever vote to have our tax dollars go back to other states? That's just ludicrous. There's a lot of states that have not adopted the Affordable Care Act, and they're losing their own federal dollars. I want to see Massachusetts citizens, your tax dollars, my tax dollars, everybody listening to this right now, I want to see our tax dollars come back. There have been a lot of bumps with of how it's been rolling out, but that goes with any program. And I think the fact that more people are covered now than before, and eventually we're going to have a real strong healthcare system.
Well, Mr. Buckley, you have 2 minutes.
Romney Care was in place. It was successful, and it covered 97% of the people in Massachusetts. There was 300,000 people that were not qualified or did not qualify for Romney Care. So we spent $500 million to ensure 300,000 people in the state of Massachusetts. That, to me, is reckless.
The final question of this debate will be asked by Mr. Hero.
Thank you. Mr. Buckley, one of the things that I admire about you is your commitment to your family. I think that's, it's tremendous. I'm not fortunate enough to have a family at this time, other than my little puppy, but, that's another story. You've placed a lot of energy and time into education, and what I'd like to know is how much more can we expect from State Representative Buckley going to Attleboro schools than State Representative Hero? What is the number that Attleboro schools will get?
I can't quantify a number, Paul, but if you vote for me and I go up to Beacon Hill, I'll get more.
Is that the end of your answer?
I believe it was short and sweet, Peter.
Okay, well, it keeps us on time. I love it. Mr. Hero?
Well, now I admire Mr. Buckley's sense of humor in addition to his commitment to his family.
Thank you, Paul.
I mean that too. School aid is determined by a formula. It is not something that you can actually just say, I'm going to fight and get another $20,000 or $100,000 or $1 million added to without every other school district in the state also having money added to that. I just don't think you appreciate or understand the complexities of the Chapter 70 funding formula, the struggles that state agencies have in the competing budgets. I just don't think you're quite there yet. I think a lot of what I and a lot of other folks in Attleboro have heard is, some really well-intended ideas, but no real specifics and no real plan on how to achieve it. We've talked about it numerous times. You would encourage rolling back the sales tax right now from 6.25 to 5%, resulting in $1.1 billion deficit. I'm sorry, $1.1 billion in lost revenues without real concrete ways to identify how to make up for that. If we're going to go ahead and increase the amount of money that we're going to give to schools, we can't just do it in Attleboro. The law doesn't permit that. Every city. So we're looking at hundreds of millions of dollars. At present, Chapter 70 funding is $4.4 billion. We just authorized out of the House a record amount of Chapter 70 funding. Attleboro has been getting more money for less students. But there's just, with all due respect, I just don't think you understand the full complexities of what's going on up there.
That ends the question and answer portion of our debate. The last thing we do, of course, is our closing statements. That's plural. The first will be delivered by Mr. Hero. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Kay. Well, first of all, this is a real pleasure to have had this opportunity to discuss the issues and have my challenger, Mr. Buckley, go on the record. I actually had a lot of fun this evening, and I'm asking for your vote on November 4th because I have a solid record of accomplishment. I've held this up. This is the work. This is just constituent service work. There's hours and hours on the phone. If I can make another point about passion, there's 45 names on each sheet. This is how many doors I have knocked on in the past 2.5 months. I'm not going to tell my number because if I say it's 5,000, my opponents will go knock on 5,100. But this is how, these are sheets. So this is how, this is a passion for Attleboro. This is, I love my hometown. I've been all over the world, including North Korea. That was a great time. The work that I've done over the past 2 years has been about the people of Attleboro. It's not about the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. It's not about the governor. It's not about, the speaker. People call me all the time. I put my home phone number on everything. I give it out to people. And it's enjoying that relationship you build with people. I've built a lot of very strong relationships up at the State House. I wouldn't have got the authorizations that I've gotten authorized at the State House if I didn't have the relationships I do. But, again, I would say that this is a passion for the people in Attleboro. This is how many people, 45 people per page, several hundred pages here. This is the work that I've done, working with the people of Attleboro, calling for all different types of problems, calling to file about, for legislation that they want filed. This is public service. I used to say this in my last campaign, public service is not about those who serve, it's about those who would be served. And it's not about whether or not you're getting a lot of attention for the work you do, or if you're just quietly going about your business and doing that work. That's what this job is about. It's not about taking credit for any one accomplishment. Nothing is done as an individual. Everything is done as a team. I got absolutely nothing done alone. Everything had to be done with the assistance of other people. I've had a lot of successes, had a lot of failures. I've made some mistakes. I always try and admit my mistakes, though. But I put my phone number out there, I put my voting record out there, I put everything on my Facebook page. I send out a weekly email to over 2,000 people every week, talking about the work that I've done. And I enjoy doing this work. I enjoy, working with the folks of Attleboro, and I ask for your vote on November 4th, excuse me.
Thank you. Mr. Buckley.
Again, thank you, Sun Chronicle. Thank you, United Regional Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, AACS, for the debate tonight. As a fiscally responsible state representative, I will be a strong, mindful advocate for increases in local aid, school funding, public safety, veterans, and our seniors. I will encourage job creation legislation and economic development opportunities while assisting officials with gateway cities redevelopment initiatives. This important designation needs to be a driving force for state funding in Attleboro. We are losing out on valuable aid that can foster contamination cleanup, brownfields development initiatives, and garner new business and technology opportunities. I will work hard to stop unfunded mandates and regulations that harm economic growth initiatives. I will find creative ways to expand and improve elder and youth services in our city. I will be an advocate for programs that build public-private partnership success. Putting Attleboro first means being a champion for local aids, our seniors, our veterans, and our children, because our future depends on it. Working with colleagues, understanding issues because of real-world experience, and knowing how to work collectively for the future is my experience. This doesn't come from a study. It doesn't come from a think tank. It's about real-world experience. With this experience, I know how hard it is to build and operate small business in tough economic times. My parents were small business owners. My wife and I are small business owners, and my work experience in both the public and private sector highlight a career of knowledge my opponent gets from a textbook. The past 2 years, my opponent has worked on more legislation regarding prisons and the incarcerated than legislation directly benefiting our city. Attleboro does not have a prison. We have a senior center. We have a rather large school, and we need more funding for those parks, pools, recreation facilities, and the community. Gateway cities is a must. Federal priorities are issues secondary to garnering local support. Being Attleboro State Representative, this is first and foremost about the city you serve. With endorsements from Mayor Kevin Dumas, a majority of our elected councilors, city department leaders, and area state representatives, my ability to work closely with local government is exactly the representation the city needs. My campaign for state representative has been driven about the community and the future of our city.
I was going to let you finish the sentence.
I ask for your vote on November 4th. Vote Burt Buckley, putting Attleboro first.
Thank you. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I have moderated dozens of debates in my lifetime, and this was by far one of the best. Thanks to the panelists, awesome questions. Thank you, of course, to our sponsors, the Sun Chronicle, the United Regional Chamber of Commerce, AACS for allowing voters at home to learn more about these two fine candidates. I have no question, whether it be Mr. Hero or Mr. Buckley, we will be well represented over the next 2 years. For those of you in attendance this evening, thank you, thank you, thank you. You were so well behaved, and you are not the typical voter showing apathy, and that is what makes this area so special.